Ghulam Habib. I worked in Pakistan, both in the public sector department and then in the university, and now I'm working with the development organizations. I will be talking about the feed resource assessment based on the experiences of several Asian countries which gathered under the FAO umbrella for this feed assessment. The outline of the presentation that I would be talking about why feed assessment is important, why it is needed, and how the FAO initiated this program. And then we'll be talking about the livestock feed resources in different countries, considering different production systems in Asia. And then we will see the feed balances scenarios which were reported by different countries. And then grain use and the national human edible protein output-input ratio by livestock species from sustainability point of view. And at the end, I will be also talking about the knowledge gaps which are present in feed assessment and then way forward. Now, if you look at Asia has huge human livestock population. It is almost 50% of the whole world, and the livestock population is growing very fast, especially the sheep and goats. If you look at the curve, it is exceeding the other animals. Now, if you look at just something repetition from the past discussion, but let's have a quick look. In 2011, the world average was 727 million ton of the milk, which was around about 36% higher than the previous decade. And much of this milk came from the Asia. And the contribution of Asia increased from 15.5% in 1981 to 37% in 2011. Similarly, if you look at the meat sector, Asia is also contributing a lot. And the world average in 2012 is around about 272 million ton, and 45% of that world average is supplied by the Asian countries. Now, the growth in meat production in Asia is really very fast, and especially after 1990, it outpaced the other countries in the region, other countries of the world. So this accelerated livestock growth and the demand for livestock food is putting a lot of pressure on the livestock resources, especially feed. Now, feed serves as a fundamental of the all livestock production system. It accounts 70% of the production cost, and as in this morning we discussed thoroughly, it is related to the environment, animal welfare, and the water use efficiency, the water use footprint, and land use also. Now, the amount of the nutrient which is excreted by the animals, depending, and also the greenhouse gas emissions from the livestock sector depend on which type of feed you are giving, how they are fed, and the quantity they are fed. They are all related to the feed. Feed is a central point to that one. Similarly, we discussed in the morning that the genetic potential of the animals for production and reproduction cannot be exploited until you adequately feed them unless and until you feed them properly. So feed has a lot of, the output of the feed in the livestock production system is of economic importance, and it really matters for the success of the livestock. So it is one of the priority area in the livestock production system. Now, what we should know about the feed, and that is that the national feed assessment. What is national feed assessment? It is the data and computation based on the analysis of the supplies and demand for livestock feed in the country, in different production systems, and in different agroecological zones within the country. Now, it is achieved through collecting and processing data on national feed supply and livestock demand, using different approaches. Now, the need for this is that we need an institutional setup with trained personals, with clear-cut procedures and facilities, and not just as a side activity. Until now, I think in Asia, we have been considering feed assessment as a side activity in most of the departments in most of the countries. So it needs special arrangement. Now, need for national feed assessment, why it is needed? It is needed because to identify the nutrient balances, the potential surpluses and deficit. It's not only within the country, but among the country. Within the country, there are different regions that may be having surpluses and some may be having deficit, and how to move, how to bring equity in that one, that is only possible if we know the feed inventory of the country. Then make better use of the available feed and identify the researchable area, that how feed can be efficiently utilized, how they can be combined, matching the livestock production in the country. And also planning the livestock development to have an environment sustainable stocking rate. Now, decision on the local and external trading of feed commodities can only be possible if you know the country's production and the deficit. Blind approach on importing feed from other countries or exporting feed is very harmful. It not only affects the feed prices within the country, but it also affects the production, the growth of that feed you see within the country. So that is also possible if we have in feed assessment data and we give it to the policy makers for the proper decision. Now, feed assessment is also very, very important to know the current situation, and also in the light, in the view of the climate change, such as like drought and the increasing demand of the livestock food by animals. We can also have plan and strategies to develop if we know the feed assessment both on spatial and temporal basis. Now, planning the livestock sector in relevance to available feed resources. This is everywhere at heart, a debatable topic, but it's very difficult because it has a livestock implication. Now, again, we are talking of that livestock should be reduced and matched with the available feed resources, but the primary step in this is the feed assessment. If we know the feed and then we calculate how much livestock it will be supporting, which livestock it will be supporting, then in which zone it will be, how much it will be, then it is only possible that we have a feed assessment data of the country. And importantly, it designed the feed regulatory policy. It helped in designing the feed regulatory policy in terms of feed versus food competition, like grain use. Very few countries have data on how much of the grain is used in livestock ration, in pork and livestock ration. They may be having a rough idea, but not really documented in documented form. And then the importance of feed in supplying the food quality, the food quantity, food quality, food safety is very, very important. In the food value chain, the role of the feed is central, and the health of the consumer in protecting the health of the consumers. And then balancing trade-off in biomass use, feed, biofuel, and other. Now, the biomass which is used by the livestock as a feed has several other alternative uses, and the part that goes to those alternative uses is really an economic issue. Now, unless we have a feed assessment of our country, we cannot argument we cannot, put into debate that the biomass is important for the animals because it supplies food rather than it goes to other sources. So that also need the basic approach for the feed assessment. Now, FAO initiative on the feed resources, I said that in countries were having some data, but they were not really in compiled form, and they were very loose ideas about the feed assessment. Now, FAO initiated a program in 2013 and provided guidelines to some of the Asian countries to develop the country reports, how to collect the data and develop a country report. Now, in July 2013, the countries were asked to submit the draft country report, and then in August 13 to 15 in 2013, a regional workshop of the country representative was held here in Bangkok on animal feed resources and their management, where we thoroughly discussed this issue and how to proceed. What should be the procedure, how to collect the data, what are the difficulties, and how to overcome those difficulties. These things were thoroughly discussed, and then in November 2013 was fixed as a date for the preparation of the country report and date for reviewing and finalization. So 6 countries have submitted their reports, final reports, while the other 5 countries, it is still in the pipeline. We are waiting for that one. Now, based on their findings, I'm just going to present a picture of the feed resources in Asian country. If you look to this graph, to this pie chart, green and crop residue are the major feed resources. Green include cultivated fodder and range also. Since some countries did not have separate data on the grazing, so I clubbed them together and put it together as a one thing, as a green. But if you remove the cultivated fodder, which would be 1/3 of the green, then crop residue will be the dominant feed source in the Asian region. And then it comes to the oil, cakes, and cereal byproducts, which is about 13. And grains have a minimum use in the livestock ration, especially ruminant. Now, there's a huge diversity of these feed resources among the different countries. Now, India, and Bangladesh, and Pakistan have about 60% feed coming from the crop residues. In Thailand, the grain byproducts and oil cake constitute half of the feed resources. In forage, and in Mongolia, Indonesia, and also in Bhutan, the forages are the main source, which vary from 54 to 99% of the feed resources in the country for ruminant livestock. So it is not the same. It's just diversified among the different in different countries. Now we know there are different production systems in the developing country, and these different production systems are really driven by the feed resources availability. The background, the thing in the background is the feed resources. The extensive system, which are in the animal entirely subsist on grazing. In the mixed extensive, they are partially given some type of green, some type of hay or dry refuges, or even concentrate back at home. And in the mixed crop livestock system, they are closely integrated with the crop production system. In intensive system, this is high labor intensive and high input system, and animals are stall fed all the time. The distribution of the animals also vary among these systems, but it is changing, and this is why it is very important that in feed assessment we should record these type of changes which are taking place with the pace of the time. Now, among these systems, the mixed systems are the dominant one. And these mixed systems are providing around about 60% of milk and meat to the national food availability. So the vulnerability of the system, the feed resources availability in the system, the future challenges in these systems are different. Now, if you look at the feed deficiency, so there's an overall impression that Asian countries are deficit in feed resources. And major feed deficit is in Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, while in Thailand, the deficiency is reported to be in terms of crude protein, not in terms of energy or the dried biomass. Now, feed trade, how the feed is traded within the, in terms of export import. If you look at the Indonesian scenario, they are importing major part of the plant protein and grains in the country, especially for the monogastric animal. Thailand, Indonesia has quite good animal feed resources, but the problem with the country is that they are not equally distributed. There are some areas where the feed availability is high, and there are some other areas where the feed availability are low. So it's a matter of transportation with the poor infrastructure, inadequate infrastructure, to bring equity in the term of the feed resources. So they are importing, especially for the intensive system and monogastric animal, a lot of grains and also the plant origin meal. This is why this feed assessment is very important to know how the distribution of the feed within the country is there. In India, despite of the feed deficiency, they are exporting a lot of soybean meal and other meal, especially the oilseed meal, they are exporting to other countries. And as compared to the 2003-4 and 2005, there has been quite big increase in the export of these oil meals and oil cakes from India. In Thailand, they are importing more feed than exporting it. Again, they are importing grains, byproducts, protein meals, some mineral and vitamins, but Thailand is one of the leading country in cassava production. So they are exporting a lot of cassava chips to other country, and 77% of the export is by the cassava chip from the Thailand. In Pakistan, we have deficiency of the protein. The oilseed meal and oilseed cake, the oilseed meal especially for the poultry sector, they are not enough. And the country is importing continuously since long time this oil meal. But now, as the country is in need of the edible oil also, so they are importing now seeds which give both oil meal and plus oils, and they are importing mainly from the Malaysia and soybean from the India. Now, if you look at the feed grain scenario, now in different countries, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Indonesia, Mongolia, Pakistan, and Thailand. Now, the major part of the feed grain is used in poultry in intensive system. And it varies from country to country. Dairy and beef cattle are also second largest consumer of the feed grains in intensive and mixed crop livestock system. And pig raising also require a lot of grain. And this scenario is changing. There is more and more pressure on the grain use in the livestock system and poultry system because of the expansion of the poultry industry, and also the influx of the exotic breed of cows, and more emphasis, more focus on feedlot fattening. All these required a lot of grain in their diet, and that is going to create some pressure in the future on grain use. The proportion will be even more. Now, this gives another view of the grain use in different countries, which show the percent of the national production which is used in animal ration. Now, if you look at the Indonesia has a lot of, it's maximum 22-23% of their production goes to the grain production goes to the livestock, and the other countries like Thailand and Bhutan also have. But the more important thing is the curve on the other side, that the demand is increasing progressively from 1990 to 2012. It's a tremendous increase in the grain use in the animal ration. And this increasing demand for feed grain has several implications. And again, the feed versus food competition, the use of grain for biofuel and all those things. So it is really a matter of concern. And there's a more, this grain use is not, is equally distributed on all type of grain, but there's a more pressure. If you look at the different grain sources used in the animal ration, so maize is the major feed ingredient which is used in the animal ration, and followed by wheat and then rice. Now, rice was once a feed for chives and poultry, broken rice. But because of its recent use, increasing use in the human food, the prices has gone up, and the broken rice can be really rarely spared for the animal feeding and poultry feeding. So maize has a lot of pressure to bear. Now, according to my calculations, some of the countries, especially Pakistan, by 2030, there will be not enough grain to feed the expanding poultry and the livestock population, and the country has to import it. Because there are several other problems, several other limitations to increase the indigenous maize production. So the future challenge would be to look for some other alternative sources, energy sources in the animal ration. Now, from sustainability point of view, this may be a good point to consider. Now, we estimated the human edible protein input from the grains in the animal ration and the human edible protein output in the animal products. And we ended up with a ratio which is more favorable for cattle and buffalo as compared to the monogastric animal. So this is a point which could be considered for the future. The reason is that grain use, we discussed in the morning also, that grain use in the ruminant ration is maybe up to 8 to 10%, in compound ration it will be maybe 20%, but conversely, its use in the poultry ration is 50 to 60%. And this is why the ratio is more favorable in terms of producing human edible protein in favor of the ruminant as compared to monogastric. Now, the ruminant are more efficient, we could say, than the monogastric. 5 to 8 times higher protein output per unit of edible protein input from the grains. And the reason I explained that they are consuming more fibrous feed, more byproducts, and which may be the 80% of their diet, up to 80% of the diet, and the rest is shared by the concentrate, and a part of that is grain. This also raises a concern, which is debatable, that the negative implication on environment as a result of enteric methane offset by better human protein balance as a result of better human edible protein production efficiency from human edible protein input. So that could be another. We are always blaming ruminant livestock that they are damaging the environment. Really, it's a matter of management. How we manage those animals, that can be the other way. That can be that negative impact can be minimized. But we have to look also to the sustainability of the food production from this system, which is favorable. So this thing from the sustainability point of view is really debatable. Now, if you look at the countries, again, those few countries for which I reported the data in the beginning, the overall grain wastage is more than the grain which is used for animals. In some country, it really exceeds the quantity. Now, the challenge is that if we could reduce that wastage of grain, overall wastage of grain, and even feed 20% of that one to the animals, I think we can bring a good change and help in closing the gap of the feed deficiency in case of animals. So on one hand, we are deficient. We don't have enough grain because of the situation, competitive situation. On the other hand, we are in the developing countries are wasting a lot of grains. So that is a point of concern for the future also. The way forward is that there is a rising demand for animal food sources in Asia that will drive the livestock sector transformation from subsistence to the market-oriented system with higher input needs. And this is really happening. Even I am witness of my own town where there were about 5 years back, there were only few farms, and now there are more than 100 and 200 commercial farms of buffalo and cow established to supply milk to the population. And the people are coming towards that one. The textile people in our country, they are now coming towards the dairy farming, and they are importing animals from outside. They have big farms. The number may vary from 1,000 to even more than 5,000-6,000 per farm. So the intensification of the animal system is coming up because of to meet the rising demand of the food. Now the feed resources challenge for this transformation is on the front, because we have scarcity of land for fodder and grain production. The agricultural land is used for some other purposes even. So there is even the acreage is shrinking for crop cultivation. So overall, the crop byproduct supply is also decreased. And then again, grain have priority than fodder, so the fodder land will be the most one which is suffered. Increasing land fragmentation and also reduce the overall crop productivity. The land fragmentation is also with the increase in human population, the land fragmentation is increasing, and they also have an overall negative effect on the crop productivity. Less feed due to feed, food, and fuel competition. I told you that there is an emerging concern on the use of feed stock for the biofuels. And again, in case of grains for the human food. So that competition is also a way up as a challenge to meet the nutrient requirement of the animals. Now, this morning we had a very thorough discussion on the water availability. The lower water availability limits feed and fodder production. Sometimes I also think that yes, we are getting scarce of water, but we are also wasting a lot of water in developing countries. I don't think that we are water efficient use countries, and a lot of water is wasted. So the water availability is a future major challenge, a major concern, and that will definitely limit the feed and fodder production. The climate change implication on livestock and feed supply, especially from the rangeland, because of the rangeland degradation. It is not even half of its capacity as compared to the last 2-3 decades. So the range degradation is very rapid, and there is again the drought and the erratic rainfall. All those have negative effect on the feed availability. The recent interest on second generation biofuel production could place increased pressure on crop biomass used as animal feed for the future. Now there has been, if you see the literature, there is a lot of debate going on, a lot of research going on using the crop biomass for biofuel. Now really the animal scientists should have come should come with the arguments, and for that we need really our feed assessment and its economic output in order to convince the other for use as a biofuel. The way forward, high feed costs and diminishing resources forces other feed resources to be considered. We have to look for the other resources, and then when we go for the cheap alternative feed resources, then the quality and the safety become a challenge. So that is one area. The other is that the advanced technology for vertical increase in fat production is needed, especially the climate resilience fodder varieties. Now we have to shift to that one. So especially in the arid and semi-arid area where the production of the fodder is very, very low, the land is there, but we have to go for that climate resilience for fodder technology. Adjusting livestock number and breed mix to native feed supply national policy. Again, it is easy to say, but it is very, very difficult to implement because of its livelihood implication. A farmer keeping 10 heads of animal with limited resources in an extensive system would not reduce in animals unless he has some alternative livelihood insurance for him, economic insurance. So it's a complex problem, but need to be addressed and need national policy. Again, the point, higher focus on ruminant livestock production for increasing share in the food basket. From sustainability point of view, as I explained, that the efficiency of the human edible protein input to output is quite good, favorable in case of ruminant, so that could be, from sustainability point of view, that could be an option. Now, very quickly, there has been there is a big knowledge gap on the national feed assessment among the Asian countries. Now, every country should have the core set of data on feed assessment, and unfortunately, that is missing. Or if it is there, it is not in compiled form. The livestock statistic has not yet been recognized, has not been integrated fully into the country statistic and also the agriculture statistic. So the data availability is a problem, and then how the data would be collected, the procedure, and all those things, as Prasad mentioned in the beginning of this session, that is a huge problem. And then the knowledge of the farming and feeding system is very important to know what type of feed practices are being done. So, like for example, for data, even if we don't, most of the country have no crop land data, that how much land is used for fodder, how much is used for crops, and if the crop is produced, how much is produced, and how much of that crop is giving the crop residues or other byproducts for the animal feeding. So we don't have that extraction or harvest index data based on the local system, on the local condition. That is very much missing and hindering the reliability of the data. Then the multiple use of the crop byproducts other than feed. Data is very scarce on this aspect. And then the range land and the gross land carrying capacity, the quality and the quantity they produce, that is also a data which is lacking. And then we have livestock census in different countries at a national level, but that livestock census either is done after maybe 10 years of a long interval, and also is incomplete. So there needs to be a coordination, data compilation, data updation. Regular data updation is very, very important, and dissemination for the access, that's important. For the method, we should have really a thorough homework on the data collection procedure, how the sample survey should be done, and how the data should be collected, and using the whole farm approach. The import, export, and all those things should be considered in this thing. And then the feeding practices in different agroecological zones within the country, in different livestock production system, is really a place with a gray area, and information on that is very, very scarce. Now, with the FAO initiative, I feel, because I have been looking at the different reports from the different countries, that it has really stirred up different countries to work on this one. And I think the work has been started. It's a very good move, and we have to take it forward and compile all the data, and to have accessibility of others to that one. And then it would be a step forward for creating an Asian feed network, on which my friend Muhammad will be talking maybe day after tomorrow or tomorrow on that issue. So it really has been started. Man, institutional structures are very important for that one. So in some country, institutions are there, but they are somehow not, this is not their priority. The priority is something else. So I think really the FAO has done a wonderful work to bring this thing in the focus of the, in the focus of the, for focus calculation, all those things by the different countries. Thank you very much. And at the end, I say, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. So it's very, very important to measure what we have. Thank you very much.